My sister kept dumping her twins on me like I was her built-in nanny, so I backed out of the family vacation and slipped away at the airport. The next morning my phone was blowing up and their big trip completely blew up with it. They called me the villain, but all I did was finally stand up for my mom. And that's when I realized sometimes the people who are supposed to be your greatest support can deliver your deepest wound. I'm Sarah, 29 years old, and I never thought I'd be the antagonist of our family vacation to Maine. It was supposed to be this idyllic getaway at a lakeside cabin, but instead, I became the punching bag of blame just because I had the audacity to protect my mother's health when no one else would. The bitter words, "You ruined our vacation," still echo in my mind, especially from my sister, Chloe, who seemed incapable of seeing past her own desires. Growing up in our middle-class home in Connecticut, the dynamic between me, my sister Chloe, and our parents, Brenda and Arthur, was set in stone early on. Chloe, now 33, was always the golden child. Her outgoing personality, her ability to charm absolutely everyone, my parents, they just naturally gravitated towards her. And honestly, I don't blame them. Chloe lights up a room. She's the kind of person who makes friends at the grocery store and gets invited to parties by people she just met. My dad, Arthur, especially adored her, always laughing at her jokes, putting her needs first. Me? I was the reliable one. While Chloe was out winning swim meets and being crowned prom queen, I was inside, helping Mom with dinner, making sure Dad's shirts were ironed, and maintaining a steady 3.8 GPA that, strangely, nobody ever really celebrated. It wasn't that my parents didn't love me, they did. But there was always this unspoken expectation that I'd be the steady one, the one who wouldn't cause trouble or need attention. As we got older, those roles just solidified. Chloe bounced through 3 different college majors before finally settling on communications. My parents, bless their hearts, funded each transition without a single complaint. When she wanted a year to find herself in Europe after graduating, they helped with that too. Meanwhile, I worked part-time through college, graduated with an accounting degree, and immediately landed a position at a respectable firm in Hartford. My achievements were acknowledged with quiet nods, not celebration. But the last 2 years? They brought a significant, heart-wrenching change. Mom's health had started to deteriorate, complications from type 2 diabetes. Daily medication, constant blood sugar monitoring, doctor visits when things got unstable. Dad tried to help, he really did, but he was just overwhelmed by the medical stuff. So, naturally, that responsibility fell to me. Researching her condition, organizing medications, driving her to appointments. Chloe would call occasionally, sure, but her busy life in Boston, marketing job, active social life, kept her distant. Her concern was genuine, I think, but fleeting. She'd ask about Mom and then immediately pivot to her latest dating drama or work conflict. The idea for this family vacation came from Chloe during one of our rare family dinners 3 months ago. Mom had been having a particularly difficult time, and Chloe brightly suggested what everyone really needed was a change of scenery. "We should rent that cabin in Maine the Andersons went to," she'd gushed. "It's right on the lake, totally peaceful. Mom could rest, Dad could fish, and we could all just relax." The idea took hold immediately. Dad nodded enthusiastically, and Mom's eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. "That sounds wonderful," Mom whispered, reaching for Chloe's hand. "I've been so cooped up lately." I hesitated. Summer was crazy at my firm. A week off meant double time before and after. Plus, Mom's health, medical facilities nearby, accessible cabin. But seeing that flicker of hope on Mom's face, I kept my concerns to myself. "Great, it's settled," Chloe declared, already pulling out her phone. "I'll book it next week." Next week turned into next month. As the weeks dragged on, the actual planning, the nitty-gritty details, inevitably fell to me. Chloe sent a few links, but never actually booked anything. Dad talked about fishing, but didn't research permits. Mom was excited, but tired easily trying to help. So, I took over. Lists, booking the cabin, researching local medical facilities, planning menus for Mom's diet, arranging my time off work. It was exhausting. 2 days before we were supposed to leave, Chloe called me in a full-blown panic. Sarah, I completely forgot to request vacation days. Can you call the cabin and see if we can move the trip back a week? I gripped my phone. Chloe, that's impossible. I've arranged everything around these dates. My time off was hard to get. Mom's doctor appointments are scheduled around this. But she whined, but I really want to come. Can't you figure something out? After a tense conversation, she finally, reluctantly, agreed to make it work by taking unpaid time off. The way she said it, you'd think she was making some tremendous sacrifice, and part of me actually felt guilty, even though it was entirely her fault. The night before departure, I methodically packed a separate bag for Mom's meds, clearly labeled. Maps to the cabin, nearest hospitals, pharmacies, restaurants for Mom's diet. I was utterly exhausted but still hopeful. Despite all the stress, I genuinely looked forward to spending quality time with my family. Maybe this trip would help us connect. Maybe Dad would finally notice how much I contributed. Maybe Chloe would step up. With those hopeful thoughts, I finally fell asleep, dreaming of peaceful lake views and harmonious family meals. Little did I know, the reality would be dramatically different, and this vacation would become a painful turning point in how I viewed my family and myself. My alarm blared at 5:30 a.m. Departure by 8 a.m. to avoid traffic on the 6-hour drive to Maine. I splashed cold water on my face, pushing away the lingering fatigue from a restless night of last-minute worries. By 6:15, Mom's medication bag was double-checked, every pill bottle labeled, a detailed schedule for her doses, placed in a bright red, impossible-to-miss folder. At 7 o'clock, I loaded my bags into my car and drove the short distance to my parents' house. Mom greeted me at the door, already in her travel outfit, comfortable pants, and a light sweater despite the summer heat. Diabetes affected her circulation, leaving her perpetually cold. "Good morning, sweetheart," she said, hugging me. "I've been up since 5, too excited to sleep." Dad was in the kitchen, engrossed in a fishing magazine, nursing his second cup of coffee. "Morning, Sarah," he said with a quick glance up. "Ready for vacation mode?" I smiled, then started organizing the cooler with drinks and snacks, including sugar-free options for Mom. The clock ticked past 7:30. No Chloe. Dad checked his watch with increasing frequency as 8 a.m. approached. At 8:15, he finally called her. I could hear Chloe's voice through the phone, bright and unapologetic. "I'm just finishing packing. Give me 30 minutes, tops." Dad sighed but didn't protest. "All right, we'll wait. Drive safe getting here." I bit my tongue. Chloe lived 15 minutes away. There was no reason for this. I used the extra time to review our route and check all the chargers, phones, Mom's blood glucose monitor. Chloe finally breezed in at 9:10 a.m., designer sunglasses on, carrying an oversized tote and her suitcase. "Sorry, everyone. Couldn't decide what shoes to bring, and then I realized I needed coffee." She held up a takeout cup as proof. Dad took her bags without a word, starting to load them. I watched him rearrange everything I had carefully packed to accommodate Chloe's excessive luggage. Mom just smiled indulgently, happy we were all finally together. By 9:30 a.m., we were on the road, more than an hour and a half behind schedule. Chloe immediately claimed the front passenger seat. "I get carsick in the back," she declared, leaving me in the rear with Mom. I didn't mind. It gave me a chance to keep an eye on her. The drive north was beautiful, suburban landscapes giving way to rural scenery. Dad played classic rock, and Chloe chatted animatedly about her friends and work drama. I gazed out the window, allowing myself to relax slightly. Around noon, we stopped at a charming retro diner in Massachusetts. Mom checked her blood sugar while I scanned the menu for suitable options. "The grilled chicken salad should be good, Mom," I suggested, light on the dressing. Chloe rolled her eyes. "God, Sarah, let Mom eat what she wants for once. We're on vacation." "It's fine," Mom interjected quickly. "The salad sounds perfect." When our food arrived, Chloe immediately complained about her burger. I asked for medium rare, and this is definitely medium well. She pouted, poking at it. She called the server over, delaying our meal by another 15 minutes. I noticed Mom looking tired, her face pale. Did you take your noon medication? I asked quietly. She nodded. I'm just a little tired from sitting so long. I'll be fine once we're back on the road. After lunch, we continued north. Chloe dozed in the front seat while I kept Mom company, playing word games. The further north we drove, the more spectacular the scenery became. Dense forests, sparkling lakes. We crossed into Maine mid-afternoon, and a sense of anticipation built inside me. Despite the delayed start and lunch drama, the vacation still held promise. Around 4:30 p.m., Dad turned onto a narrow road that wound through pine forests. After several miles of increasingly remote terrain, we rounded a bend and caught our first glimpse of the cabin. It was breathtaking. Perched on a gentle slope overlooking a vast, clear lake, the log cabin had a wraparound deck and huge windows. Tall pines surrounded it, providing privacy. A small dock extended into the lake with a rowboat tied alongside. Oh my, Mom breathed, her fatigue momentarily forgotten. It's perfect. Even Chloe sat up straighter. Wow. The Andersons weren't exaggerating. This place is gorgeous. Dad parked, and we all stretched. The air smelled of pine and clean water, significantly cooler and fresher. For a moment, we just stood there, taking in the view, the peaceful silence broken only by birdsong and the gentle lapping of water. That brief moment of family unity was powerful. A surge of optimism. Maybe this was what we needed. I took charge of unloading, directing Dad and Chloe to carry bags inside while I organized our supplies. The cabin's interior was just as impressive: knotty pine walls, comfortable furniture, a stone fireplace, and a kitchen that opened to a dining area with lake views. 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms branched off the main space. I call the room with the lake view, Chloe announced immediately. Dad nodded. Your mother and I will take the master. Sarah, you're okay with the small room in the back, right? It wasn't really a question. I nodded and carried my bag to the smallest bedroom, overlooking the driveway. It was perfectly adequate, clean, cozy. I unpacked quickly, then set about organizing Mom's medication station on the kitchen counter, pill bottles, glucose monitor, the schedule. By early evening, we were settled. Dad figured out the gas grill, and we had a simple dinner of grilled chicken and vegetables. As the sun began to set, the lake turned to molten gold, then deepened to purple. This was a wonderful idea, Mom said, squeezing Chloe's hand. Thank you for suggesting it. Chloe beamed, soaking up the credit, never mentioning my weeks of planning. But in that peaceful moment, surrounded by family, with the beautiful lake before us, I didn't mind. The vacation was off to a good start, despite the hiccups. As stars appeared, I allowed myself to hope for the family connection I'd been craving. I woke with the sunrise, my body still on my usual work schedule despite the vacation. Soft morning light filtered through the curtains. For a moment, I just lay there, listening. The gentle creaking of the wood, distant birdsong, the barely perceptible lapping of water. By 7 a.m., I was in the kitchen, coffee brewing, breakfast preparations underway. Whole grain pancakes with fresh berries, Mom's favorite, and suitable for her diet if she limited the syrup. Mom joined me around 7:30, looking rested, more energetic than I'd seen her in weeks. Something smells wonderful, she said, accepting the mug of coffee I handed her. You didn't have to go to all this trouble, Sarah. It's no trouble, I replied truthfully. There was something calming about cooking in this beautiful space. Did you sleep well? Better than I have in months, she admitted. Something about the air here. Dad appeared shortly after, dressed in fishing clothes, eager to try out the lake. He kissed Mom on the cheek, poured himself coffee. Pancakes for everyone, Sarah? I nodded. I thought we could all eat together before heading out for the day. I found a trail map yesterday. There's a beginner-friendly path around part of the lake. Should take about 2 hours. Perfect for this morning. Sounds great, Dad agreed. I noticed the boat has fishing gear. Thought I might try my luck after the hike. We discussed this yesterday, agreeing to meet for breakfast at 8 a.m. and leave for the hike by 9 a.m. But as 8:30 a.m. approached, Chloe still hadn't appeared. Mom set aside a plate of pancakes for her while Dad checked his watch. Should I go wake her? I asked. Dad shook his head. Let her sleep. She works hard and needs her rest. I bit back a response about how we all worked hard. Instead, I started cleaning up, wrapping Chloe's portion for later. At 9:15 a.m., still no Chloe. Dad grew impatient. Maybe we should just head out. She can catch up. Mom looked torn. She'll be disappointed to miss the hike. We compromised. Prepare for the hike, fill water bottles, apply sunscreen, gather the map, and the small first aid kit I packed. By the time we were ready, it was nearly 10 a.m., and the morning's coolness was already giving way to summer heat. Just as we were about to leave without her, Chloe finally emerged from her bedroom, yawning and stretching in pajamas. "Morning, everyone," she said casually, as if we hadn't been waiting for 2 hours. "We were about to leave for the hike," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. Chloe blinked. "Oh, right. The hike. Sorry, I completely forgot. Give me 15 minutes to get ready." 15 minutes stretched to 30. Chloe showered, changed, and finally joined us, her hair perfectly styled despite the upcoming physical activity. By then, it was nearly 10:45 a.m., and the temperature had risen significantly. "We'll need to shorten the route," I said, studying the map. "It's getting too hot for the full loop, especially for Mom." Chloe frowned. "But I wanted to see the lookout point mentioned in the guidebook." "We can try again tomorrow if we start on time," I suggested, pointedly avoiding her gaze. The abbreviated hike was still pleasant. The trail wound through fragrant pine forests, occasionally opening to stunning lake views. Mom moved slowly but steadily, and I stayed close, watching for any signs of fatigue. Dad ranged ahead with Chloe, their conversation punctuated by her bright laughter. About halfway, Mom's pace slowed further, her breathing labored. "Let's take a break," I suggested, guiding her to a fallen log. She sank down gratefully. "Just need to catch my breath. It's been a while since I've done this much walking." I handed her water, discreetly checking for other symptoms. Her face was flushed, but not alarmingly so. "How do you feel otherwise? Any dizziness or unusual fatigue?" "I'm fine, Sarah," she assured me, though she drank the water eagerly. "Just out of shape. Don't worry so much." Dad and Chloe had noticed our stop and doubled back. "Everything okay?" Dad asked, his brow furrowed. "Just taking a short rest," Mom replied before I could speak. "Enjoying the scenery." The rest of the hike was taken at a slower pace with more frequent breaks. By the time we returned to the cabin, it was past noon, and the day was genuinely hot. Mom went to lie down, insisting she was just tired. I checked her blood sugar before she napped, slightly elevated, but not dangerously so. Dad headed out to try fishing, and Chloe announced she was going to sunbathe. I used the time to prepare a light lunch for when Mom woke and to plan the next day's activities with more realistic timing. Around 2 p.m., we gathered for lunch on the deck. Mom looked refreshed after her nap, and the tension from the morning seemed to have dissipated. Dad proudly showed pictures of a small bass he'd caught and released. "I thought we could try that seafood restaurant in town for dinner tonight," I suggested. "The reviews are great, and they have plenty of options for Mom's diet." "Actually," Chloe interjected, "I met some people while I was sunbathing. Local guys with a boat who know all the best spots. They recommended a different place, the Lobster Trap. Supposed to be the best seafood for miles." "Did you check if they have menu options for diabetics?" I asked. Chloe rolled her eyes. "Not everything has to revolve around dietary restrictions, Sarah. I'm sure they have salads or something." Dad predictably sided with Chloe. "The Lobster Trap sounds great. Good to get recommendations from locals." I let it go, making a mental note to check the menu online. Mom caught my eye and gave a small shrug that seemed to say, "It's not worth arguing about." After lunch, Chloe disappeared into her room to freshen up, emerging an hour later in a new outfit with fresh makeup. "By the way," she announced casually, "I might not join you all tomorrow for the lighthouse tour. The guys I met invited me out on their boat." "But we planned this together," Mom said, a note of disappointment in her voice. "I was looking forward to all of us seeing the lighthouse." "I know, Mom, but how often do I get to go boating with cute local guys? You understand, right?" Chloe's tone was wheedling, the same one she'd used successfully throughout childhood to get her way. "I guess so," Mom conceded. "Just be careful with strangers, honey." I couldn't keep quiet any longer. Chloe, we came here for a family vacation. We've only been here one day, and you're already making separate plans. Don't be so controlling, Sarah. Chloe snapped. Just because you have no social life doesn't mean I have to be glued to the family 24/7. That's enough, Dad intervened, but his tone was far milder than if I had spoken to Chloe that way. Chloe can spend one day doing her own thing. We'll still have plenty of family time. The exchange left a sour taste in my mouth. As we prepared to leave for dinner, I caught Chloe texting rapidly, a small smile playing on her lips. She was already mentally checked out of family time, and we'd barely begun our vacation. The lobster trap turned out to be a tourist trap with long wait times and a limited menu. Mom struggled to find suitable options, eventually settling for a plain grilled fish that came out dry and overcooked. Chloe dominated the dinner conversation, chattering about her job and friends in Boston, barely asking about anyone else's life. Dad encouraged her, laughing at her anecdotes, while Mom smiled tiredly and picked at her food. I sat quietly, observing the family dynamics I'd known all my life playing out in this new setting. Chloe at the center of attention, Dad facilitating her spotlight, Mom peacekeeping, and me on the periphery. I'd hoped the change of scenery might shift these patterns, but so far, the vacation was only reinforcing them. Back at the cabin, Chloe announced she was going for a moonlight walk along the shore. "Don't wait up," she called as she headed out the door, phone in hand. I suspected she was meeting up with her new friends. Dad turned on the TV to catch a baseball game, and Mom settled beside him with a book. I retreated to my small bedroom, lying awake, listening to the unfamiliar night sounds of the lake, wondering if I was the only one who felt the undercurrent of tension beneath our supposed vacation idyll. The third morning of our vacation dawned bright and clear. I woke early again, checking the weather forecast. Perfect conditions for the boat trip we had reserved weeks ago, a local tour company offering a 3-hour cruise around the lake. Mom had been particularly excited, as it required minimal exertion. I headed to the kitchen to start breakfast, stopping briefly to check Mom and Dad's closed door. They were still sleeping, which was good. Mom needed the rest. I started coffee and began mixing batter for blueberry muffins. As they baked, filling the cabin with their sweet aroma, I realized I hadn't heard any movement from Chloe's room either. Given yesterday's pattern, I wasn't surprised. Our boat tour was scheduled for 11 a.m., giving us plenty of time for a leisurely breakfast and the short drive to the marina. Mom and Dad emerged around 8:30 a.m., drawn by the smell of coffee and fresh baking. Mom looked well-rested, her color good. I discreetly watched as she checked her blood sugar and took her morning medication. "These muffins are wonderful, Sarah," she said, selecting one. "You're spoiling us." Dad poured himself coffee, peering out at the lake. "Perfect day for boating. What time do we need to leave?" "We should head out by 10:15 a.m. to be safe," I replied. "The marina is about 20 minutes away, and they asked us to arrive 15 minutes before departure." Dad nodded. "I'll make sure Chloe is up by 9:30. We enjoyed a pleasant breakfast on the deck. At 9:30, Dad knocked on Chloe's door, but received no answer. He knocked again, louder, then cautiously opened the door. "She's not here," he said, returning to the deck with a confused expression. "Doesn't look like she slept in her bed." A flicker of concern crossed Mom's face. "Do you think she's okay? Should we call her?" "I'm sure she's fine," Dad said, though he immediately pulled out his phone. After several rings, it went to voicemail. He left a message reminding her about the boat tour. By 10 a.m., still no sign of Chloe. Her continued absence created a nervous atmosphere. Dad tried calling again, same result. "Maybe she stayed with those friends she met," he suggested, though he looked uncomfortable with the idea. Mom's worry was more visible now. "She should have let us know." "That's not like her." I refrained from pointing out that it was exactly like Chloe to do what she wanted without considering others. Instead, I busied myself packing a small cooler with water bottles and snacks for the boat trip. As 10:15 a.m. approached, our planned departure time, I noticed something else troubling. "Dad, where are the car keys? We should get going." Dad patted his pockets and frowned. "They should be on the hook by the door." A quick search confirmed what I was beginning to suspect. The keys were gone. And so was the car. Chloe had taken it. Without asking, without a note, without considering that we might need it. Dad's expression darkened. She knows we have the boat tour today. Why would she take the car without saying anything? The situation grew more concerning when Mom opened the refrigerator and frowned. Sarah, didn't you put my backup insulin in here? I can't find it. A quick inventory of Mom's medication revealed the problem. Her emergency insulin was missing from its designated spot. It should have been in the refrigerator door, clearly labeled. Most of her daily medications were still in place, but the insulin she might need in case of a blood sugar spike was gone. With a sinking feeling, I realized it must be in the small cooler bag I had packed for emergencies, the same bag that was now in the trunk of our missing car. I need to call Chloe again, Dad said, his voice tight with anger. This time, he left a more urgent message. Chloe, call us immediately. Mom's insulin is in the car and we need it. Plus, we're going to miss our boat reservation. The next hour was tense. We tried calling Chloe repeatedly. Each call went to voicemail. Mom insisted she was fine for now. She had taken her regular morning dose and had enough medication for the day as long as her blood sugar remained stable. But the missing emergency insulin was a safety concern we couldn't ignore. At 10:45 a.m., I made the decision to cancel our boat tour reservation. The marina was too far to walk, especially in the growing heat, and we couldn't risk missing the boat and losing our deposit. The cancellation fee was substantial, but there was no alternative. I'm sorry about the tour, Mom, I said, seeing her disappointment. Maybe we can reschedule. Mom patted my hand. It's not your fault, dear. I'm more concerned about Chloe. This isn't responsible behavior. Dad paced the deck, alternating between calling Chloe and staring down the road as if he could make the car appear. His mood shifted between worry and anger. When she gets back, we're going to have a serious conversation about consideration for others, he muttered. My primary concern was Mom's medication. While she wasn't in immediate danger, I didn't like having her emergency supplies inaccessible. After some quick research on my phone, I discovered a small pharmacy in town, about 2 miles away. It might be possible to get a temporary emergency prescription filled. I'm going to see about getting to town, I announced. We need to have backup insulin just in case. Dad looked ready to object, probably to suggest waiting longer for Chloe, but Mom nodded firmly. That's a good idea, Sarah. Better safe than sorry. I found a water taxi service listed online that could pick us up from our dock. The cost was more than I wanted to spend, but this was about Mom's health. 20 minutes and a phone call later, a small motorboat pulled up to our dock, operated by a weathered local man who introduced himself as Dave. Need a lift to town, folks? He called. I helped Mom into the boat, explaining the situation to Dave. He was sympathetic and offered to wait while we visited the pharmacy, then bring us back. The boat ride to town was beautiful despite the circumstances, with Dave pointing out local landmarks and a family of loons. At the pharmacy, I explained our situation, and the pharmacist was understanding. Mom had her medical information stored in her phone, which helped. While they couldn't provide a full replacement, they gave us enough emergency insulin to last the remainder of our vacation. The cost was high without our regular insurance coverage, but I paid without hesitation. Dave waited as promised and ferried us back to the cabin. As we approached our dock, I felt a mixture of relief about securing the medication and simmering frustration about the circumstances that had made it necessary. We returned to the cabin around 2:30 p.m. to find the car still missing and no sign of Chloe. Mom was beginning to look tired from the outing, so I helped her to the couch for a rest while Dad resumed his anxious pacing and phone calls. Finally, at nearly 4 p.m., we heard the sound of tires on gravel. Through the window, I saw our car pull up with Chloe at the wheel. She emerged, looking relaxed and happy, wearing a new sundress I hadn't seen before and carrying shopping bags. Dad met her at the door. "Where have you been?" he demanded, his voice tight. "We've been calling you for hours." Chloe looked genuinely surprised. "My phone died, and I forgot my charger." "Did you need something? Did we need something?" I interjected, unable to contain myself. "We had a boat tour scheduled for today, the one we've been planning for weeks. You took the car without telling anyone, with Mom's insulin in it." Chloe's expression shifted from surprise to defensive irritation. How was I supposed to know her insulin was in the car? And I thought the boat thing was tomorrow. Even if it was tomorrow, you don't take our only vehicle without letting anyone know, Dad said. We were worried about you, and we needed the car. Mom joined us, moving slowly from her rest. Honey, my emergency medication was in the cooler in the trunk. We didn't know where you were or when you'd be back. For a brief moment, Chloe looked contrite. I'm sorry about the insulin, Mom. I didn't know. Then her expression brightened. But look what I found in town. She held up her shopping bags. The cutest boutique with local crafts. I bought you a handmade scarf, Mom. The swift change of subject was classic Chloe. Deflect, distract, and charm her way out of accountability. Usually it worked, especially with Dad. But this time, the issue was too serious to gloss over with gifts. Chloe, I said firmly. We had to hire a water taxi to get to town so we could get emergency medication. We lost our deposit on the boat tour. This isn't about forgetting or your phone dying. It's about basic consideration for others, especially Mom's health needs. You're overreacting, as usual. Chloe snapped. Mom is fine. Nothing happened. And I said I was sorry about the insulin, but how was I supposed to know it was in the car? You should have asked before taking our only transportation, I insisted, or left a note, or made sure your phone was charged. Any of those would have been the responsible thing to do. Dad stepped between us, his mediator role firmly in place. All right, that's enough. What's done is done. Chloe, please be more thoughtful in the future. Sarah, let's move past this. We still have most of the day ahead of us. I noticed he had barely chastised Chloe while asking me to drop the subject. The familiar pattern stung, especially given the seriousness of the situation. Mom, ever the peacemaker, suggested we all have a late lunch on the deck and enjoy the beautiful afternoon. The meal was strained. Chloe chattered about her shopping discoveries and the charming local men who had given her recommendations. She barely acknowledged the worry and inconvenience she had caused. By dessert, she had shifted the narrative entirely. She had done us a favor by discovering these local gems that weren't in any guidebook. After lunch, I found Mom in her room, looking more tired than she had that morning. Are you feeling okay? I asked, instantly concerned. Just a bit run down from all the excitement, she assured me. But I noticed she was checking her blood sugar again. The reading was higher than ideal, likely from the stress of the day. Let me get you some water and your medication, I offered. As I helped Mom with her pills, a wave of protective anger washed over me. This vacation was supposed to help Mom relax, not add stress that affected her health. That evening, I stayed close to Mom, monitoring her condition discreetly. Her blood sugar eventually stabilized, but the incident had left me on high alert. As I prepared dinner, I could hear Chloe on the deck, talking and laughing on her phone, presumably with her new local friends. The sound grated on my nerves, but I focused on chopping vegetables with perhaps more force than necessary. Dad joined me in the kitchen. Sarah, he began awkwardly. I know today didn't go as planned, but try not to be too hard on your sister. She's young and enjoying her vacation. She's 33, Dad, I replied quietly, keeping my voice low so it wouldn't carry. That's not young when it comes to basic responsibility and consideration for others. Mom could have had a serious issue today. Dad sighed. I know, and I've spoken to her about it, but you know how she is. The more we push, the more she pushes back. Let's just try to salvage the rest of the vacation, okay? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further without saying something I might regret. But as I continued preparing dinner, I couldn't shake the feeling that a line had been crossed today, and that worse was yet to come. The fourth day of our vacation dawned overcast, with a hint of humidity that suggested possible afternoon thunderstorms. The weather perfectly matched my mood, heavy with the unresolved tension from yesterday. Still, I was determined to make the most of our family time, especially for Mom's sake. I planned a picnic for today, knowing Mom enjoyed outdoor meals, but needed to avoid excessive exertion. There was a perfect spot just a short walk from our cabin, a grassy clearing with picnic tables overlooking a quiet cove, close enough for Mom to manage easily, but scenic enough to feel special. By 9 a.m., I was in the kitchen preparing picnic foods, carefully including options that would work with Mom's dietary needs: whole grain sandwiches with lean protein, fresh fruit, and homemade bean salad. I also packed Mom's medication, extra water, and a small first aid kit. Yesterday's experience had reinforced my caution. Dad emerged around 9:30 a.m., kissing Mom's cheek as she followed him into the kitchen. "Something smells great," he commented, peering over my shoulder. "Picnic lunch," I explained. "I thought we could walk to that little cove." "It's an easy walk for Mom, and the tables are in a shaded area." Mom smiled appreciatively. "That sounds lovely, Sarah. What can I do to help?" I set her up with the simple task of wrapping sandwiches while I finished the salads and packed the cooler. Dad volunteered to find the cabin's stash of picnic supplies. Once again, there was no sign of Chloe. After yesterday, I decided not to count on her participation in family activities. But Mom still knocked gently on her door around 10:15 a.m. "Chloe, honey, we're planning a picnic lunch if you'd like to join us." To my surprise, Chloe's door opened almost immediately. She was already dressed and groomed, checking her phone. "A picnic? Sure, I could do that. What time are we going?" Mom looked pleased. "We were thinking around 11 o'clock, if that works for you." "Perfect," Chloe replied, her attention still partly on her phone. "That gives me time to finish answering these work emails." I felt a flicker of hope that today might proceed more smoothly. Perhaps Chloe had reflected on her behavior. By 10:45 a.m., all picnic preparations were complete. We were just waiting for Chloe. At 11:05 a.m., she finally emerged. "Ready?" she announced cheerfully. Then, glancing at her phone again, she added, "Oh, by the way, I hope it's okay. I invited a couple of people to join us. They're bringing some local craft beer they thought Dad might like to try." My hope for a peaceful family day deflated instantly. "You invited strangers to our family picnic? Without asking anyone?" Chloe rolled her eyes. "They're not strangers. They're the guys I met the other day, Liam and Mark, and Liam's sister, Emily, is coming too. They're locals who know all the best spots." Dad, predictably, seemed unbothered. "The more the merrier, right? And craft beer sounds great." Mom looked less certain, but nodded supportively. "Of course, it's fine. I'll just grab a few more plates." I bit my tongue and recalculated the food. It would stretch to accommodate 3 more people, but just barely. More concerning was that Chloe had once again made a unilateral decision affecting all of us. We set out for the picnic spot, me carrying the heavy cooler while Dad managed the picnic basket and folding chairs. Mom walked slowly but steadily, and Chloe strolled alongside her, chatting about the local attractions her new friends had recommended. The picnic area was lovely. A grassy clearing with sturdy wooden tables, shade trees, and a spectacular view of a quiet cove. I set up our spot, spreading the tablecloth and arranging the food while Dad helped Mom get comfortable. Chloe checked her phone. "They should be here any minute." "They're coming by boat," said they'd dock at the small pier just down there. She pointed to a wooden dock about 50 yards away. Sure enough, within minutes, we heard a motorboat approaching. A sleek craft pulled up, and 3 people disembarked, 2 men and a woman, all in their late 20s or early 30s. They waved enthusiastically when they spotted Chloe, who waved back with equal excitement. Introductions were made quickly. Liam was tall with sun-bleached hair and the deep tan of someone who spent most of his time outdoors. Mark was shorter but muscular, with a trimmed beard and multiple tattoos. Emily, Liam's sister, had the same blonde hair as her brother, but styled in a short, fashionable cut. "So great to meet Chloe's family," Liam said, shaking Dad's hand firmly. "She's told us all about you." Mark held up a 6-pack of beer in brown bottles with handwritten labels. "Local brewery. Best IPA in Maine, if you ask me." Dad looked delighted, immediately engaging Mark in conversation about brewing techniques. Mom smiled politely as Emily sat beside her, asking about our cabin. Chloe hovered, clearly pleased with herself for facilitating these connections. I busied myself setting out the food, trying to rearrange it. I overheard snippets of conversation. Liam was a seasonal fishing guide, Mark managed vacation properties, Emily worked remotely as a graphic designer. The picnic began pleasantly enough. The local beer was indeed excellent, according to Dad, who was soon deep in conversation with Mark. Mom seemed to be enjoying Emily's company, though I noticed she was eating less than usual, possibly self-conscious about her dietary restrictions. Trouble began about 20 minutes in. Liam, who had been watching Mom decline certain foods, asked bluntly, "Are you on some kind of special diet?" Chloe mentioned something about health issues. Mom looked uncomfortable. "Just managing diabetes," she said quietly. "Nothing to worry about." "My uncle had diabetes," Liam continued, seemingly oblivious to Mom's discomfort. "Lost a foot to it eventually. Nasty disease." Mom's face paled, and I intervened quickly. "We manage it very carefully," I said firmly. "Mom's doing great with her treatment plan." But Liam wasn't finished. "You should try this natural supplement my uncle started taking. Really helped with his blood sugar. I can get you some while you're here. My buddy sells it." "That's very kind," Mom replied diplomatically. "But I prefer to stick with my doctor's recommendations." Liam shrugged. "Suit yourself, but these pharmaceutical companies just want to keep you sick and dependent on their drugs. The natural stuff works better and doesn't have all those side effects." I felt a surge of protective anger. This stranger was giving dangerous medical advice to my mother within minutes of meeting her. Before I could respond, however, Chloe jumped in. "Liam owns a health food store in town," she explained, as if that qualified him to give medical advice. "He knows a lot about alternative treatments." The conversation shifted as Mark produced a flask of what he called homemade moonshine and began pouring small amounts into plastic cups. Dad accepted one, as did Chloe and Emily. Mom and I politely declined. As the afternoon progressed, the dynamic became increasingly uncomfortable. Liam, Mark, and Emily consumed most of the beer, plus the moonshine, growing louder and more overbearing. Chloe matched their drinking, giggling at their jokes and seeming to forget we were there, failing to involve us in their stories. "Tell them about that time you stole your dad's car in high school, Chloe." Mark encouraged, using a nickname I'd never heard anyone call my sister. Chloe launched into a story I'd never heard before about apparently taking Dad's car without permission when she was 16 and going to a party. The way she told it made it sound like a hilarious adventure rather than dangerous and illegal behavior. Dad looked uncomfortable, possibly because he had no memory of this incident. "I don't remember that happening," he said when she finished. "Oh, you never knew." Chloe laughed. "I got the car back before you woke up. Mom caught me, but she never told you." Mom frowned. "Chloe, that's not. Remember how you made me promise never to do it again and we kept it our little secret?" Chloe continued, cutting Mom off. "You were always covering for me." I watched Mom's face, seeing the hurt and confusion there. This story was clearly fabricated. But Chloe was rewriting our family history to impress her new friends. The final straw came when Mark and Liam began tossing a frisbee nearby, becoming increasingly reckless as the alcohol affected their coordination. A wild throw from Mark sent the frisbee crashing onto our table, knocking over drinks and sending food to the ground. "Sorry about that," Mark called, not sounding particularly sorry. Neither he nor Liam made any move to help clean up the mess. As I scrambled to salvage what I could of our picnic, I noticed Mom looking pale and tired. I discreetly checked her blood sugar and found it lower than it should be. She needed to eat something substantial soon. "Mom, are you feeling okay?" I asked quietly. She nodded, but admitted, "I'm a bit tired, and I should probably eat something more substantial than these snacks." I turned to the group. "I think we should head back to the cabin. Mom needs to rest." Chloe frowned. "We just got here. It's barely been 2 hours. Your mom's not looking great," Emily commented, more observant than her brother and friend. "Maybe you should take her back." Liam waved dismissively. "She's fine. Just give her one of those granola bars." The casual dismissal of Mom's health needs by this stranger was the absolute last straw. I stood up, my voice firm. "We're going back now. Mom needs proper food and rest." Chloe looked embarrassed. "Sarah, stop being so dramatic." "Mom, are you really not feeling well, or is Sarah overreacting as usual?" Mom, never one to create conflict, hesitated. "I am a bit tired," she admitted. but you can stay if you want, Chloe. Dad can help me back. Actually, I said, looking pointedly at the mess on the table and ground. I think we should all go. The picnic is pretty much ruined anyway. Chloe glared at me, but was interrupted by Mark before she could respond. Hey, no worries. Why don't we all head back to your cabin? We can bring the boat around to your dock. Got plenty more beer on board. Alarm bells rang in my head. The last thing Mom needed was 3 intoxicated strangers invading our cabin. That's not necessary, I said firmly. We have plans for the evening. No, we don't. Chloe contradicted. That's a great idea, Mark. You guys can come see our awesome cabin and hang out on the deck. Dad looked torn, glancing between Mom's tired face and Chloe's excited one. To my surprise, he sided with me. I think today isn't the best day for more company. Your mother needs to rest. Chloe's face flushed with anger and embarrassment. Fine, but I'm staying with my friends. I'll catch a ride with them. That suggestion created an entirely new problem. Chloe, you are not going to a stranger's house to crash after drinking all day, I said firmly. I'm 33 years old. You don't get to tell me what to do. Chloe shouted, loud enough that I was certain Mom could hear from inside. Dad finally took a stand. Chloe, you're staying here tonight. Your friends need to leave. What followed was an ugly scene. Chloe alternated between arguing and pleading while her friends gathered their things with obvious annoyance. Liam muttered something about uptight family as he collected his speaker. Mark tried to convince Chloe to leave with them one more time, but Dad physically stepped between them, his teacher's authority finally making an appearance. After they departed, Chloe stormed to her room and slammed the door. Dad slumped into a deck chair, looking exhausted. I went inside to check on Mom, finding her sitting at the kitchen table with tears in her eyes. I'm sorry about all that, I said, sitting beside her and taking her hand. This isn't how I imagined our family vacation, she said softly. I just wanted us all to spend time together. As I comforted Mom, the weight of the past 4 days settled heavily on me. The pattern was clear. Chloe would continue to prioritize her own desires. Dad would enable her until pushed to the absolute limit. Mom and I would be expected to accommodate and forgive without complaint. But for the first time, I was questioning whether I wanted to participate in this dynamic any longer. The morning of our 5th day at the lake dawned gray and drizzly, the weather matching the mood inside the cabin. Mom and Dad were having coffee at the kitchen table when I emerged from my room, their conversation stopping abruptly as I entered. Chloe's door remained firmly closed. Good morning, I said, pouring myself coffee and joining them. How are you feeling today, Mom? Better after a full night's rest, she replied, with a small smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. The strain of yesterday's events was visible. Dad cleared his throat. I was thinking we could drive to that lighthouse today, the one in the guidebook. The rain's supposed to clear by noon. I nodded, appreciating his attempt to salvage something. That sounds nice. The views are supposed to be spectacular. The tentative peace was shattered when Chloe finally emerged around 10 a.m., looking hungover but defiant. She poured coffee and leaned against the counter rather than joining us. Morning, she said flatly. What's the plan for today? Dad explained the lighthouse idea, his tone carefully neutral. Chloe listened, sipping her coffee, then said, Actually, I made other plans. Liam and Mark are picking me up at noon. They're taking me to this hidden beach only locals know about. The same people who had been asked to leave just last night were now expected to be welcomed back. I exchanged a glance with Dad, who looked troubled but hesitant to create more conflict. Chloe, Mom began gently. We'd really like to do something as a family today. We've barely spent any time all together on this trip. We've been together plenty, Chloe countered. I'm allowed to have some fun on my vacation too, you know. Of course you are, Dad said placatingly. But after yesterday. After yesterday, what? Chloe interrupted. After Sarah was rude to my friends and embarrassed me. After you kicked them out like they were criminals instead of people just trying to show us a good time. Dad's placating approach clearly wasn't working. So, I decided to be more direct. After they disrespected Mom's health needs, drank excessively on our property, and left us to clean up their mess, I said. Those people aren't friends, Chloe. You met them 3 days ago. Chloe rolled her eyes. Here we go again with Saint Sarah, the guardian of all things proper and responsible. Some of us actually know how to have fun and make connections with new people. This isn't about fun, I replied, struggling to keep my voice level. It's about respect for the family and consideration for Mom's needs. We came here for a family vacation, and you've spent most of it avoiding us or bringing strangers into our space. Oh, please. Chloe scoffed. Mom is fine. You're just being controlling as usual. Dad intervened. Let's all calm down. Chloe, we would really appreciate it if you joined us for the lighthouse today. Your friends can wait until tomorrow. Chloe hesitated, possibly because the request came from Dad. For a moment, I thought she might agree. Then her phone chimed. She checked it, and her expression hardened. They're already on their way. I can't cancel now. Yes, you can, I said. You can text them back and explain that you're spending the day with your family. I don't want to. Chloe shot back. I want to go to this beach with people who are actually fun to be around. Mom's soft voice cut through the tension. Chloe, honey, I've been looking forward to the lighthouse. I thought we could take some family photos there. The hurt in her voice was unmistakable. For a brief moment, Chloe looked conflicted. Then she squared her shoulders. I'm sorry, Mom, but I already committed to this. They're bringing a picnic and everything. I'll do the lighthouse thing with you another day. There won't be another day, I pointed out. We're leaving in 2 days, and tomorrow is supposed to be stormy. Well, that's not my fault, is it? Chloe retorted. Maybe you should have planned better. The unfairness of that statement, when I had done all the planning, was the final, breaking straw. Years of built-up resentment and frustration broke through my usual restraint. I did plan, I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to control it. I planned this entire vacation while you did nothing. I researched activities that would work for Mom's health needs. I packed her medications and monitored her condition. I made restaurant reservations and scheduled tours. I even packed special foods that she can eat safely. Chloe looked taken aback, but quickly recovered. Nobody asked you to do all that. You just like controlling everything. No, I countered, years of unspoken thoughts finally finding voice. I do it because someone has to be responsible. And it's never going to be you, is it? Not when you were 16 and Dad had to pick you up from parties where you were drunk. Not when you were 22 and Mom and Dad had to pay off your credit card debt. And not now, at 33, when you can't even be bothered to show up on time for family activities. Sarah, Dad warned, but I was beyond stopping. Do you have any idea what Mom's been through this year with her health? Do you know how scared she was when she was hospitalized in March? Of course you don't, because you sent flowers instead of visiting, then called for 5 minutes before you had to rush to a party. Chloe's face flushed. That's not fair. I live in Boston. I can't just drop everything every time Mom has a health issue. I live an hour further away than you do. I pointed out. But I managed to be there. I always manage to be there because that's what family does. So I'm not family now? Chloe's voice took on a dangerous edge. You're family when it's convenient for you. I replied. When you need money, or a place to stay, or someone to listen to your latest drama. But when the family needs you, when Mom needs you, you're nowhere to be found. Chloe turned to her parents, tears welling in her eyes, tears I recognized as her go-to tactic when confronted with uncomfortable truths. Are you going to let her talk to me like this? Dad looked deeply uncomfortable. Sarah, that's enough. Your sister. No, it's not enough. I interrupted, something I rarely did with my father. For years, we've all tiptoed around Chloe's feelings while ignoring everyone else's. We make excuses for her selfishness. We clean up her messes. We rearrange our lives to accommodate her whims. And what has it gotten us? A family vacation where Mom's health is jeopardized, Dad's stressed, and I'm treated like a servant, expected to cook and clean for Chloe's random friends. Mom's quiet voice broke through my tirade. Sarah, please. I'm sorry, Mom, but it needs to be said, I continued, gentler now. I love all of you, but this dynamic isn't healthy for anyone. Chloe needs to hear that her actions affect others, especially you. Chloe's tears had turned to rage. You think you're so perfect, don't you? The responsible daughter, the good one. Well, guess what? Everyone is sick of your controlling, judgmental attitude. You don't get to dictate how I live my life or spend my vacation. No, I don't, I agreed. But when your choices directly impact Mom's health and well-being, that's where I draw the line. Mom is fine, Chloe shouted. Stop using her health as an excuse to control everything. At that, Mom herself stood up. I am not fine, she said, with unusual firmness. I haven't been fine for months. My blood sugar has been all over the place. I'm constantly tired, and I worry about every bite of food I put in my mouth. This vacation was supposed to be a chance for me to relax and enjoy my family, but instead, I've been stressed and anxious since we arrived. Chloe stared at Mom, utterly speechless. Dad placed a hand on Mom's shoulder, but she gently shrugged it off. Brenda, he began, using her name in that special way reserved for serious moments. No, Arthur, Mom said. I need to say this. I love both my daughters equally, but Sarah is right about one thing. This vacation has become all about managing Chloe's needs and moods rather than enjoying our time together. Chloe's face crumpled. So, you're taking her side? After everything I've done to make this vacation fun, what exactly have you done? I asked, incredulously. Name one thing you've contributed to this vacation besides stress and drama. I've found this place. Chloe shot back. This was my idea. Finding a cabin online and then doing absolutely nothing to make it happen doesn't count as a contribution, I retorted. Dad paid for it. I booked it. Researched activities. Packed supplies. You ruined it is what you did. Chloe shouted. You've turned what should have been a fun family vacation into a military operation with your schedules and rules and judgment. You've made everyone miserable with your controlling behavior. Dad finally found his voice. Chloe, that's enough. Sarah has done nothing but try to make this vacation pleasant for everyone, especially your mother. If anyone has ruined things, it's... He cut himself off, but the implication was clear. Chloe gasped, genuinely shocked to hear her father come so close to blaming her. I can't believe this, she said, her voice suddenly small. My entire family is turned against me. No one is turned against you, I said wearily. We just want you to grow up and think about someone besides yourself for once. The sound of a boat motor approaching our dock broke the tense silence that followed. Chloe's phone chimed with a text message. That's Liam and Mark, she said, her voice cold. I'm going with them. Don't wait up. Chloe, please. Mom called as she headed for the door. Stay and talk this through. There's nothing to talk about, Chloe replied without turning around. Sarah has made her feelings clear, and apparently you all agree with her. I know when I'm not wanted. With that dramatic exit line, she stormed out of the cabin. Through the window, I could see her hurrying down to the dock where the now familiar motorboat was waiting. Liam waved enthusiastically, unaware of the family drama he was intersecting. After Chloe departed, the cabin fell into a heavy silence. Mom sank back into her chair, looking utterly drained. Dad paced the living room, running his hands through his hair, a gesture of frustration I'd rarely seen from him. I'll make some fresh coffee, I said, needing something practical to do with my hands. As I measured the grounds and filled the reservoir, Dad came to stand in the kitchen doorway. Did you mean what you said about leaving tomorrow? I nodded, not trusting myself to speak further without my voice breaking. I'm sorry, Sarah, he said, the words coming out haltingly, as if he wasn't accustomed to saying them to me. I didn't realize how much pressure you've been under. It's not just this vacation, I replied, keeping my eyes on the coffee maker. It's been our family dynamic for as long as I can remember. I just reached my breaking point. Mom joined us, her eyes red-rimmed, but dry now. I should have seen it, she said softly. I've leaned on you so much, especially since my diagnosis. It wasn't fair. I don't mind helping, Mom, I assured her. I love you and I want to support you. What I mind is that it's always assumed I'll handle everything while Chloe gets a free pass to do whatever she wants. Mom reached for my hand. I never meant to make you feel taken for granted. I know you didn't, I said, squeezing her hand. But that's what happened, and I need some space to figure out what comes next. The lighthouse trip was quietly abandoned as the three of us spent the afternoon in a strange, subdued state. I prepared a simple dinner, which we ate mostly in silence. The absence of Chloe's usual chatter and drama felt oddly conspicuous, like a missing tooth your tongue keeps finding. As I was cleaning up after dinner, Dad approached me hesitantly. "Are you sure about leaving tomorrow?" I nodded. "I need to, for me." What should I tell Chloe? The question irritated me. Still worried about Chloe's feelings even now. But I kept my tone neutral. Tell her the truth. That I needed some space after our argument. Dad nodded, looking older than I'd ever seen him. "I've made a lot of mistakes with you girls," he admitted. "I thought I was being a good father by keeping the peace. But I was really just enabling bad patterns." The acknowledgement, however late in coming, meant something. "It's not too late to change those patterns, Dad." That night, I packed my belongings methodically, leaving out only what I'd need in the morning. As I folded clothes and organized my toiletries, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and relief. The decision to leave early was painful but necessary, a declaration of my own worth and needs that had been a long time coming. I went to bed early but lay awake for hours, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of the lake at night and wondering if I was doing the right thing. Around midnight, I heard the distant sound of a boat motor. Chloe returning, presumably. There were no voices or door slams, just the quiet click of her bedroom door closing. Morning came with pale sunlight filtering through my window. I dressed quickly and carried my bags to the car before joining my parents in the kitchen for a final breakfast. Chloe's door remained closed. "I made your favorite blueberry pancakes," Mom said, her smile brave, but her eyes sad. "Thank you," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. We ate together, making stilted small talk about the weather and my drive home. As I was helping clear the dishes, Chloe's door finally opened. She appeared in the kitchen doorway, looking subdued. "You're really leaving?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual edge. "Yes," I replied simply. "I think it's for the best." She nodded, not meeting my eyes. "Safe drive." It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. From Chloe, it was almost conciliatory. The goodbyes were emotional but restrained. Mom hugged me tightly, whispering, "Call me when you arrive safely." Dad's embrace was awkward but heartfelt. Chloe hung back, offering only a stiff nod. As I drove away from the cabin, watching it recede in my rearview mirror, I felt a strange sense of both loss and liberation. For the first time in my adult life, I had chosen my own needs over family expectations. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to travel on my own terms. The small inn I found about 30 miles from our family cabin was nothing special. A standard roadside establishment with clean rooms and a view of pine trees rather than the lake. But it offered something I desperately needed: space to think. After checking in and carrying my single suitcase to the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and let the emotions I'd been controlling wash over me. Tears came hot and fast, a release of tension and grief for the family vacation that should have been, for the relationship with my sister I'd never truly had, for the years of feeling invisible despite always being needed. When the waves subsided, I took a long shower, ordered a pizza from the only delivery place in the area, and spent the evening watching mindless television. The simplicity was healing. No schedule to maintain, no one's needs to anticipate, no tension to navigate. I called Mom as promised to let her know I'd arrived safely. The conversation was brief but gentle, both of us carefully avoiding mention of Chloe or the argument. "Get some rest," Mom said before hanging up. "You deserve it." The next day, I slept later than I had in years, waking naturally around 9:30 a.m. without an alarm. After a leisurely breakfast, I spent the morning catching up on work emails from my room. It wasn't exactly a vacation activity, but it felt productive and normal in a way the cabin experience hadn't. In the afternoon, I drove to a nearby state park and hiked alone, setting my own pace without worrying about accommodating anyone else. The solitude was refreshing rather than lonely. As I stood on a small overlook watching a hawk circle lazily in the clear blue sky, I realized how rarely I experience this kind of unstructured freedom, the ability to go where I wanted. When I wanted, answering only to myself. That evening, my phone rang with Mom's number. I answered immediately, a reflexive spike of worry cutting through my newfound peace. "Is everything okay?" I asked. Yes and no, Mom replied, her voice strained. I had a bit of a blood sugar issue this afternoon. Nothing too serious, but I was pretty shaky for a while. Concern flooded me. What happened? Did you take your medication? Where was Dad? Is there a doctor nearby you can see? Sarah, breathe, Mom said gently. I'm fine now. My blood sugar dropped suddenly. Probably from the stress of everything, to be honest. Your father helped me get some juice and crackers and I stabilized. I wanted to hear your voice. The admission touched me deeply. I'm glad you called. How are things otherwise? Mom sighed. Quiet. Your father took the boat out fishing. Chloe has been gone most of the day with those friends of hers. My jaw tightened. Even after what happened? After your health scare. She doesn't know about it, Mom admitted. She left before it happened, and we haven't seen her since. The old anger flared, but I tamped it down. Mom, maybe you should come join me at this inn. It's not fancy, but it's comfortable and I could take care of you properly. There was a pause before Mom responded. That's very sweet, but I think I need to stay and see this through with your sister. Running away won't solve the underlying issues. Her words, though not intended as such, felt like a gentle rebuke of my own decision to leave. I didn't run away, I said, more defensively than I intended. I removed myself from a toxic situation. Of course you did, honey, Mom said quickly. And you were right to do it. I didn't mean to imply otherwise. We talked a while longer, Mom filling me in on Dad's fishing success and the family of loons they'd spotted. By the time we hung up, I felt both better for having talked to her and unsettled by the news of her health episode. The next morning, I woke early and found myself packing my bags without having consciously made the decision to return to the cabin. Something in Mom's voice the night before had triggered my protective instincts. Despite my determination to prioritize my own needs, I couldn't ignore the possibility that Mom might need me. I checked out of the inn and pointed my car back toward the lake, telling myself I was just going to check on Mom and could always leave again if the situation remained unchanged. The drive felt shorter this time. As I pulled into the cabin's gravel driveway, I was surprised to see only Dad's SUV present. Chloe's rental car was nowhere in sight. I parked and sat for a moment, gathering my thoughts before heading inside. Dad answered my knock, surprise evident on his face. Sarah, we weren't expecting you back. I was worried about Mom after her blood sugar incident, I explained. Is she okay? Dad stepped back to let me in. She's better today. The doctor said it was likely a combination of stress and missing a meal. I stopped in the doorway. Doctor? You took her to a doctor. Dad nodded. I insisted after she nearly fainted yesterday. There's a medical center in town, the same one you researched. They were very helpful. The fact that Dad had taken charge and followed through on getting Mom medical attention was unexpected but heartening. Where is she now? Resting in the bedroom. The doctor recommended taking it easy today. Dad hesitated, then added, she'll be happy to see you. I carried my bag inside and went directly to the master bedroom. Mom was propped up against pillows, reading a novel. Her face brightened when she saw me. Sarah, what a wonderful surprise. I sat on the edge of the bed and took her hand. I was worried after our call yesterday. How are you feeling? Much better, she assured me. Your father has been very attentive, and the doctor was wonderful. She adjusted my medication slightly, which seems to be helping. I glanced around the cabin. Where's Chloe? Mom's expression clouded slightly. She didn't come home last night. She texted her father this morning to say she was staying with her friend Emily. The information didn't surprise me, but it still stung to know that Chloe had essentially abandoned the family in the middle of a health crisis. Has she asked about you at all? Mom shook her head. I don't think your father told her I wasn't feeling well. He didn't want to worry her. Or give her the opportunity to demonstrate whether she would care enough to come back, I thought, but didn't say. Instead, I asked, have you eaten lunch yet? I can make you something. Your father brought me soup a little while ago, Mom said, then added with a small smile. It was from a can, but he heated it perfectly. The image of my father, who rarely ventured into cooking territory, carefully preparing canned soup for my mother, brought an unexpected lump to my throat. Perhaps my departure had forced some necessary changes in the family dynamic already. I spent the afternoon keeping Mom company, catching her up on my brief solo adventure and listening to her stories about Dad's fishing exploits. She seemed genuinely more relaxed than she had been earlier in the vacation, despite her recent health scare. "I had a good talk with your father after you left," she confided when Dad stepped out to buy more ice. I told him some hard truths about how I felt enabling Chloe all these years. It wasn't an easy conversation, but it was necessary. "How did he take it?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Better than I expected," Mom admitted. "I think seeing you stand up for yourself shocked him into reconsidering some things. He admitted he's been unfair to you and far too permissive with Chloe." The acknowledgement was validating, even secondhand. "Do you think anything will actually change?" Mom squeezed my hand. "Change doesn't happen overnight, especially with patterns as old as these. But I believe we've taken the first steps." Early evening brought the sound of a car in the driveway. Looking out the window, I saw Chloe's rental. She entered the cabin alone, stopping short when she saw me sitting with Mom in the living room. "You're back," she said, her tone unreadable. "Mom had a health scare yesterday," I replied, not bothering to soften the information. "Her blood sugar dropped dangerously low. Dad had to take her to a doctor." Chloe paled visibly. "What? Why didn't anyone call me? Would you have answered?" I asked. "Or were you too busy with your new friends to care about your family?" "Sarah," Mom warned gently. Chloe's expression cycled rapidly through shock, guilt, and defensiveness. "I would have come back if I'd known," she insisted. "Is she okay? Are you okay, Mom?" "I'm fine now," Mom assured her. "Just tired." The doctor adjusted my medication. Chloe approached hesitantly and perched on the arm of the couch near Mom. "I'm sorry I wasn't here." The apology seemed genuine, which caught me off guard. I had expected more defensiveness, more deflection of responsibility. Mom patted Chloe's hand. "You're here now." Dad returned with the ice and groceries, pausing briefly when he saw Chloe, but offering a neutral greeting. The four of us existed in an awkward truce for the remainder of the evening. Everyone careful with their words, the recent conflicts hovering unspoken in the air between us. After dinner, which I prepared while Dad insisted on handling the dishes, Chloe approached me on the deck where I'd gone for some fresh air. "I didn't know Mom was sick," she said without preamble. "I would have come back." "I believe you," I replied, surprising myself with the realization that I did. Chloe could be selfish and thoughtless, but she loved Mom in her own way. Chloe leaned against the railing, looking out at the lake. "I've been thinking about what you said. About me never taking responsibility, always expecting everyone to accommodate me." I stayed silent, giving her space to continue. "I'm not good at being reliable," she admitted. "Not like you. It's easier to be the fun one, the spontaneous one. No one expects anything from me except entertainment." "That's not entirely true," I said. "Mom and Dad expect you to be an adult who considers others, especially when it comes to Mom's health. And I expect you to be a sister who sees me as a person with needs, not just a convenient resource to handle whatever you don't want to deal with." Chloe nodded slowly. "I can see how I've been taking advantage. Not intentionally, but the result is the same." She turned to face me directly. "I can't promise I'll suddenly become as responsible as you overnight, but I am sorry for how I've treated you, especially on this trip." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was more self-awareness than Chloe had ever demonstrated before. "Thank you for saying that." "So, where do we go from here?" she asked. "One day at a time," I replied, starting with finishing this vacation with as little drama as possible for Mom's sake. The final 2 days of our family vacation passed in a state of cautious reconciliation. Chloe actually joined us for meals and activities, though she did slip away once to say goodbye to her new friends. More significantly, she made an effort to help with Mom, offering to get her medications or asking if she needed anything. Dad, too, showed subtle but meaningful changes. He consulted me about activities suitable for Mom rather than automatically deferring to Chloe's preferences. He stepped up with practical tasks without being asked. And most importantly, he began to hold Chloe accountable for her commitments, giving her a pointed look when she was late for breakfast on our final day. On the morning of our departure, as we packed the cars and prepared for the journey home, Mom pulled me aside for a private moment. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For having the courage to speak your truth, even when it was painful. Sometimes a family needs a disruption to see the patterns they're trapped in." I hugged her tightly. "I'm sorry I left you." "Don't be," she insisted. That act of self-respect did more to change things than years of silent accommodation ever could. The drive home was split between the two cars, Dad and Mom in the SUV, Chloe and I in her rental. The arrangement, suggested by Dad, forced Chloe and me to spend several hours in close quarters, navigating conversation without the buffer of our parents. It was awkward at first, but gradually we found our way to more honest communication than we'd had in years. Chloe admitted feeling jealous of my closeness with Mom, especially since her health issues began. I confessed to resenting her freedom and the way she seemed exempt from family responsibilities. "I've always admired how together you are," Chloe said at one point, surprising me. "You make adulting look effortless." I laughed. "Trust me, it's not. I'm constantly worried I'm doing it wrong." "You worried about doing something wrong," she teased. "I thought that was my department." The shared laughter felt like the beginning of something new. Not a complete resolution, but a crack in the wall that had grown between us. Back home, the changes that began at the lake continued to unfold gradually. 3 months after our eventful vacation, we gathered for family dinner at Mom and Dad's house. Mom's health had stabilized with her adjusted medication, and she looked better than she had in months. The most remarkable change was in our family dynamic. Dad consulted me about important decisions rather than automatically deferring to Chloe. Mom was more forthright about her needs rather than trying to accommodate everyone else first. And Chloe, while still Chloe in many ways, made visible efforts to be more considerate, calling Mom regularly and even remembering Dad's birthday without a reminder. As for me, I discovered that speaking up for myself didn't cause the family to fall apart as I had feared. If anything, it strengthened us by replacing unhealthy patterns with more honest communication. I began setting clearer boundaries around my time and energy, and to my surprise, my family largely respected them. The vacation that I thought had been ruined turned out to be transformative in ways I never expected. By standing up for myself, even when it meant being cast as the villain temporarily, I had initiated necessary changes that benefited everyone. The pain and conflict had been worth it for the healthier family dynamic that emerged. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to love yourself enough to demand respect. That setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's essential for authentic relationships. And most importantly, that it's never too late to change family patterns that no longer serve anyone well. Our main vacation wasn't the idyllic experience I had planned, but it gave us something more valuable, a new understanding of each other, and the courage to create healthier ways of being family. In the end, that was worth more than any perfect vacation could have been. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself with family, even when it made you temporarily the bad guy?